I started the Appropriate Technology Collaborative about a dozen years ago to design technologies and programs for low-income people in the lowest income countries in the world. We work in some pretty rough communities. I work primarily in rural Guatemala, but we've also explored looking in city dumps in different, Managua and Guatemala City dumps to visit the communities there and to understand what their needs are. This went into our portfolio of understanding what human beings in desperate straits really need. These are the conditions people live in. People are struggling in parts of the world just to get by, just to be alive. It's a struggle to be alive. I had a conversation with this woman living in the Managua City dump. We were there, there's a translator here, and the woman that was living there, and she was living there with her children. And she was telling me about how she had plans for her two sons, that they were going to go and study at a trade school that the Spanish government had brought to the area. And she was really excited about their future because they were studying and they were going to get good jobs. And she was talking about other things, and I realized she's having the same conversation I was having with my friends back in Ann Arbor about what our kids are doing and what we hope for them and how we hope our family does well in the future. It was 100% exactly the same conversation you would have with your friends. How about that? This is universal. Everybody is very similar. Same aspirations, same goals. The only difference is that she has less opportunity. Okay. Let's discuss poverty just briefly. This is how economists look at poverty. The economy is like a pyramid. It's relatively few people at the point of the pyramid are rich, right? And a whole bunch of people at the base of the pyramid are poor. That's how the economists look at the pyramid. I gave a talk at a conference about lifting the economic pyramid, and that was my little sketch for it. This is what the economic pyramid really looks like. If you take everybody, you assign, okay, everybody's 1 inch by 1 inch, and then for every $10,000 in income, you're 1 inch tall, right? It's a mile long here by a mile. Half the people in the world are in that very first layer. By the time you get up to be this tall on the economic pyramid, this tall, the pyramid is about this wide, okay? But the actual height is 3 miles, which means that there's actually, these people here have most of the money. Does this make sense? What it makes sense, what it is that the model economists use for understanding the economy is dead wrong. It's not a pyramid, it's closer to a thumbtack. So we design both technologies and programs to get technologies in people's hands. And so I'm going to discuss a couple of the technologies that we have created. We have about a dozen products that we've created that are used around the world. This is a solar vaccine refrigerator that we designed back about a decade ago. And it can be built anywhere, locally available materials. It does not use electricity. You can build this in a rural community. You don't have to have a long extension cord to plug it in. You don't need to buy solar panels and bring them there. This is something where that box on the top it collects heat from the sun. And this part gets hot, and this part gets cold because this is hot. And in between there is physics. And if I described it to you exactly how it works, that would take the rest of the evening. So I'll keep moving on. So no electricity. This is in use primarily in India. There was a company that started building these for vaccine storage in India. From our design, anyway, our design is available for free for people to copy. The first group to use this, by the way, were a group of fishermen on the east coast of Africa who were selling dried fish, and they were able to get close to 100 times more per pound of fish if they could have a refrigerator that could keep them cold long enough to get to market. So the first version of this was built really big to cool fish. The second version that I heard of was used by farmers in Peru to keep milk cold until it could get to market. So it's used for more things than vaccine storage, but our original design is for vaccines. Okay, so available free online. Built by students, by the way. A team of students from Michigan State University came down to Guatemala to work with us, and in 4 days they built a refrigerator out of scrap metal, which is just mind-boggling to me that people can do that. This is a cool project. It's a generator made out of old disc brakes from cars and recycled microwave oven parts. That's it. And it has a certain steampunk aesthetic to it. It is relatively robust. A wheel for a car has 100 horsepower that might go through it. It is about a 1,000-watt generator. It has about 1.3 horsepower going through it. So it should last a very long time. This has a trivial load on it. The idea is that we want to hook it up to a water turbine where it spins 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, provides electricity, and we don't need batteries. Because if you have water running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it's providing electricity all that time. And where your energy is it's stored in the water that's flowing down the hill and flowing through your pipes. And this is also one of our more popular designs. So we do a lot of solar work. This is a solar food dehydrator that in Guatemala they have one growing season, and then there's a dry season. The dry season's getting longer, by the way. There's more drought in Guatemala, which is, since I started working there, the droughts have become worse. The dry season is extended noticeably. Anyway, during the rainy season, fruit is literally falling off trees. And fruit doesn't store itself very well. A mango falls on the ground and within 3 days it's spoiled. However, if you can dry it, you can store that fruit for a year or two. Now, in Guatemala during the dry season, kids don't get enough nutrition. As a matter of fact, in western Guatemala where we work, over half the kids are stunted from bad nutrition, which means that they don't grow up tall enough and their brains don't develop fully. So it's a tragedy what's happening there. This is a way of taking the abundance of food during the rainy season and making it available at other parts of the year. This also is a business generator. There's a women's co-op that we helped start working with these food dehydrators to dry fruit and sell it in the market. And then they started making this type of granola bar. They got creative with this. And those are really popular. So they're selling things in the market so they have more income so that their families, they can purchase more things like eggs and protein for their kids. So there's a 8-woman cooperative that uses a pair of these food dehydrators right now. And other nonprofits are asking us to provide both the food dehydrators and then also business lessons for the people so that they know how to do bookkeeping, accounting, and have some sales strategies. So Mind, Power, and Light. Now we talked about some of the technologies we've created. Okay, a generator, refrigerator, and solar food dehydrator. We have a dozen technologies we've created. We also have a program. The technologies are great, but if you can't get them into people's hands, they don't really do much. So we created a program called Mind, Power, and Light to get solar power to the poorest people in rural Guatemala. These are people, they call it the last mile. These are people past the last mile, where we have to sometimes carry materials, by hand, on paths to get to these little villages that are amongst farming communities to get the products to the people that need them. So Mind, Power, and Light teaches Guatemalan women about electricity, circuits, solar power, and then we provide an education in carpentry skills, which is seeing a bunch of Guatemalan women use power tools for the first time is just wonderful. They're laughing, they're having very good, no, they're having a wonderful time here. By the way, in rural Guatemala, women don't take tech classes after about the 7th or 8th grade. The guys take tech classes and the women take sewing and weaving classes. And we taught a solar class, and all the people that signed up for the solar class in Guatemala were guys. And I said, well, where are the girls? Where are the women? And they said, well, they don't take tech classes with boys. So we decided to offer a solar class to just girls, just women. These are young women. There was a waiting list for the class. lots of women wanted to take the class, and it turned out to be very popular. So given an opportunity, the women will sign up for tech classes and really enjoy them. Carpentry class, tech classes, and also then business incubation, business classes, how to run a business, how to do marketing, and a certain amount of self-esteem building type classes. Okay, so Mind, Power, and Light is recognized by the United Nations Compact for Sustainable Development as one of the top 100 sustainable enterprises worldwide. This was a surprise to us. We're a small nonprofit, and to have this honor it came out of the blue to us. Anyway, it's been very nice to be able to put this on our resume, our collective resume. And it's because we address 8 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals put together by the United Nations Sustainable Development, the Compact for Sustainable Development. It's interesting, once you start a program, like Mind, Power, and Light, where we provide solar power, actually, Mind, Power, and Light provides solar power, and they don't give things away. These are businesses. These are real businesses that make a profit, or at least make enough money to cover costs, to sell solar power to rural people who have very little money. So cost is a critical issue there. To add another category onto that plan, once you have a working program in place, it's so much easier than starting from scratch. So if we wanted to make sure that we were working on gender equality, well, we have a whole series of classes for women. Gender equality seems to be something that we can make sure that is part of our program, because it's an important part of this. If you read about the Sustainable Development Goals, they go together. They make a program. They make the world a better place. But every aspect of it, all 17 goals, are interrelated. And so adding gender equality, adding clean water now, we actually sell water filters, reducing inequalities. This is where women are able to earn a living in a country where only men had earned a living to begin with. In parts of the country where only men were earning a living to begin with. Adding something onto an existing program is so much easier than starting a program from scratch. So, let me tell you a story. Fatima joined us at age 16 to take our Mind, Power, and Light curriculum. And she traveled about 7 miles to get to the class across Lake Atitlan, so she took a bus and then took a boat across the lake and went to the class 7 miles from her home. That was the furthest she'd ever been from home in her life. I'm sorry, just a second. It's the furthest she'd been from home in her life, and she turned out to be one of our star pupils. She really understood the class. She caught on really quickly, and she became one of the people that we actually ended up hiring her to help teach the class by the time she was 17. By the way, on the very right-hand side is Monica Goforth, who is our executive director, talking with Fatima as they were working on a solar project near Fatima's village. So Mind, Power, and Light, how we make it affordable, how we make this work is that right now in Guatemala, in rural parts of Guatemala where they don't have electricity, people use kerosene and candles to see at night. Everybody wants to see at night. The sun goes down at about 6:30 every night. And if you can't see at night, there's really nothing you can do. But unfortunately, kerosene and candles are not very bright. You burn a lot of fuel and you get relatively little light from it. So, we came up with this idea of selling solar power that's cheaper than burning kerosene and candles. Kerosene and candles, we did a survey back in 2008, and it showed that people were paying between $1.20 and $4.40 a week for kerosene and candles. These are the poorest people on the planet, and they're paying more for lighting than you are. It's cruel, but that's what's happening. So we found that it was affordable for people to switch from kerosene candles to solar power. I mean, it's less expensive. The light that's over there that somebody's going to end up with tonight costs about $35 in Guatemala. Kerosene candles, remember, $1.20. The least expensive is $1.20 a week. So in 30 weeks, you have enough money, you've spent enough money to actually purchase one of those lights. There's some creative financing that we've come up with that helps people make that more affordable. So, people save money. After 30 weeks, they've paid it off. They have $1.10 to $4.40 a week that they never had before. For some of our clients, that's an increase in disposable income of 25%. That's a real change in lifestyle just because they get one solar light that costs 35 bucks. Here's Rosie, one of the women who's in the largest solar business that we've started so far. And this system that she has now is one that has 4 lights for 4 different rooms in the house. All of our systems have a cell phone charger, and it has a radio. People love the radio also on these systems. So they also sell water filters now, clean burning cook stoves, because once again, adding something onto an existing program is so much easier than creating something from scratch.
Is the white thing then the water filter?
Oh yeah, these water filters, what you do is I could have killed that. So. The water filters, these are like 5-gallon buckets. They're food grade plastic. You pour water into the upper one, and it flows through into the lower bucket through that little plastic piece there through the filter. That filter, and it's clean water in the lower bucket. And so it takes a little time to filter from one to the other, but you could end up with 5 gallons of water ready to go whenever you need it with this system. And it's not terribly expensive. And that filter is good for 1 million liters of water. Yeah, we try to get good stuff to our clients. We try to get the best stuff at the lowest price. And that is a water filter that if it's taken care of, you need to backwash it periodically. That filter will take care of a family for 20 years. So we also are working on other ways. We're working on ways to make these solar power systems last for 20 years. Right now, a solar power system like what Rosie's holding, the solar panel lasts 20 years, the LEDs last 20 years, the batteries last 5 or 6 years. So that's the weak point in the system. We've come up with a new circuit board. We have great volunteers, by the way. I don't know electronics, but we have a volunteer that does. And he designed a circuit board for batteries. It's a battery management system that makes it so that the batteries, for 15% more system costs, 15% more, the batteries will go 20 years. So it gets 4 times as much value out of the system for 15% more. That's the type of engineering that just gets me excited. You know, it's possible to do that. You can, we can, and the volunteers that we have can really make the world a better place. So I'm really excited about the lights, as you can tell. Oh, and families that get these lights have a big change. The kids can see well enough at night to do their homework at night for the first time. Girls, right now every family has a cell phone, because cell phones, you can get a used one in the market for $2. And in Guatemala, you can receive phone calls for free. So everybody has a phone, and it's on all the time. But if you're 90 minutes from the nearest outlet, guess what? Somebody has to go charge the cell phone. Guess who charges the cell phone? It's the girls. Just like girls get water, right? I've seen many pictures of girls carrying buckets of water on their heads. Also, girls charge the family cell phone. So every couple of days, they need to take a phone, hike 90 minutes, plug it in, wait for it to charge, and then hike back 90 minutes and miss a day of school. And there's a very high percentage of young women in Guatemala that drop out of school by the end of 3rd grade. With solar lights, they stay in school longer. We've been doing this long enough to have the data to show that. With solar lights, kids study longer, and they stay in school longer because they're doing better in school. And with every year you stay in school longer, there's lots of data on this. Every year longer you stay in school, the higher your income will be. So essentially, getting a solar light in your house is out of poverty in 1 generation with 1 intervention. And it costs $35 for a single light. This is a larger system, and we've come up with a creative way of financing these that I'll discuss in a minute. So, in addition to getting people out of poverty with some simple interventions, these lights do have other advantages that I didn't expect. This last January, our executive director, Monica, asked me to go out and review 40 of our most remote projects. And so I got a chance to get out into the country and see what people do with solar lights over time. And what I found was people like, well, first of all, people like to use the lights outdoors as well as indoors, and the houses are lit up. All the things I've just described do take place, and families are doing better. But also, if you have a light in your house, people can see it from miles around. If everybody else is using candles and you have an LED light, it's like a beacon, and people are drawn to that. And if you have a house beside a path or beside a dirt road, and you have a light on, people are going to stop. And you could open a window like that, tienda, that means store. They started a store out of that window. And they're outdoor furniture, cool, you get to hang out. And there's lights. People can hang out under the lights at night. So this is a business that was started only because they had a solar light. That was one of the discoveries that we made. I just think it's so cool. And here are some of the things that they sell. Now, I have to admit, this is not the healthiest food in the world. But there are some eggs there. There are some cleaning products that they have. There's some feminine hygiene products that they have. But also, so they have a store. They have extra income. And this is their store and their bedroom and their living room, all wrapped in one. This have you ever heard, I'm sure heard of tiny houses, well, Guatemala invented the tiny house. This is an extreme case of a tiny house. Anyway, I was so delighted to visit these stores and see these families prospering from the simple technologies that our businesses have introduced. If I say we've done this, by the way, at this point, it's the businesses that we've helped start. So I take credit for it, but it's really other people doing all the work. You know, these businesses are independent. This last year, they were unfunded. We didn't have money from Mind, Power, and Light last year, and yet we brought solar power to over 10,000 people because it was a business that was profitable. And once you get a business going that's profitable, people aren't going to stop making money. So they brought power and water filters and clean burning cook stoves to rural parts of Guatemala without any additional funds coming in. Now we want to expand the program. There's a whole lot more Guatemala that could use programs like Mind, Power, and Light. And so I'm talking to a foundation tomorrow about it. And if anybody's interested, there's going to be opportunities to work with us expanding this. So here's Fatima again. She's now training international volunteers who want to come and work with us. She's showing them how to wire a solar. The complicated part, I don't have a picture between us. The complicated part of this is the voltage controller and the inverter and all the electronics that go with solar panels to make it so that it makes a complete system. She can wire all of that cool stuff together. She also can wire up light switches and outlets, and she's showing our international volunteers how to do this. So she's, in addition to being the champion saleswoman, she's also one of our champion educators. So if you come to work with us in Guatemala, it's quite likely that you'll be working with someone. You'll be learning from someone that speaks Spanish. We have translators, but most people don't need translators. It's pretty easy to understand things once you develop a relationship with someone. On the right-hand side here is Fatima with her family. I wasn't warned about this until about an hour before I met with her family, but her father lost both of his arms in an accident, and he doesn't earn an income. Fatima is the only income for her family. And this is a cheerful group. I visited them for an afternoon and was really impressed at how together the family is. You know, they're getting along. Life ain't so bad. You know, no arms doesn't seem to bother them so much. There's more stories to that than I can go into right now, but sometime, hang out. We started a program to make the price of solar lighting come down, to make it more affordable for people. We don't give things away. We don't want our businesses to give things away. We want people to purchase things, to take responsibility for their own lives. However, if we could reduce the cost some and make it so that it's more affordable, get more lights to more people, we're going to do that. And the way we do that is that we sell the carbon credit. We sell that ton of carbon dioxide. We only do 1 ton a year. We don't do the whole, not 810 tons of carbon dioxide. We do it 1 ton per year per household that switches from kerosene and candles. Now, our program is not certified by a third party. That's because that's really expensive and we're really small. So, what we do instead of certification is we, oh, by the way, carbon capture and sequestration, $94 a ton. That is an estimate. I don't believe a single ton of carbon dioxide has ever been captured and sequestered for $94. But that's what they're predicting will be the cost in the near future. There's another estimate that's around $300 a ton to sequester carbon dioxide. Or you can just avoid having it put in the atmosphere to begin with for $10. I don't know. I go for the 10. By the way, that is a Boy Scout installing solar power by candlelight. We have the coolest volunteers. We've had Boy Scouts, we've had Girl Scouts, we've had a wide variety of ages. Anyway, so what we get instead of having this certified by a third party is we actually get people to sign off on what they've received. So a family has to affirm that they've received a solar light to replace candles, paraffin candles, or kerosene. And then we file these and they're available to the people who have made the contributions for the carbon credit program. So far, we ran it for 1 week so far. This, by the way, is signed with a thumbprint because that's who we're dealing with. And all of the documents will be stored and auditable. That's how we're making sure that people can verify that what we're doing, what we say we're doing is what we are doing. So I think that this is actually more transparent than having a third-party certification. We're working a little harder, but we're saving a ton of money for the small nonprofit. This, by the way, was to certify that a family received a water filter after a volcano eruption in Guatemala that wiped out a couple of villages. There was a lot of people without water, and the water was contaminated in a lot of villages. And so we got those fancy water filters out to people, and that's, again, really low cost, water out to people, water filters out to people, and everybody had to sign to it. So humanitarian carbon credits. With solar lights, kids do their homework at night for the first time, girls stay in school. With the higher income, families can afford better food, higher quality food, and there's less malnutrition. And kerosene really puts out toxic fumes and puts out the soot that you see from that candle is one of the atmospheric forcers. It pushes the equivalent of carbon dioxide way up for kerosene lamps and candles. If you burn a lot of candles in your house, you'll probably notice that your walls are not as bright and clean as they used to be. So, we can do this in Detroit, and we can do this beyond Detroit. This is not limited to Guatemala, it's not limited to the circumstances there. So we started a program in Detroit called Detroit Solar. And we teach about electricity, circuits, and solar power in Detroit. But instead of starting businesses with our Detroit kids, what we're doing is helping them have hands-on training so that they're ready for jobs in the solar industry. And we're helping them get to the point where they may be able to interface with a state-approved apprenticeship program. We're just starting out in Detroit. We've already had a few solar installations with our Detroit kids. Amazing group of people so far. We have after-school programs. We're working on summer school programs, and we're expanding it to Southeast Michigan. It's not just for people that live in the Detroit zip codes. We're going to be teaching it in Ann Arbor, and we've been asked to teach it in East Lansing also. So, in this class, by the way, we've taught it to people as young as middle school, younger than middle school. And we've taught people that have a college education. Everybody gets something out of the class. And it's the same darn curriculum for everybody. And it's delightful to be able to bring a really cool class into a school and teach the kids and have them, their eyes light up and have them understand what we're talking about and get it that this is the way of the future. We teach both sustainability and about solar power. And these young girls here, by the way, just put together a complete solar power system. It's small. It's a small voltage controller. It's a small battery. It's a small solar panel. Small LED lights, light switches. But it's exactly the same thing that you would put on your house. All of the same components, only they're small. And so they get it. At the end of the class, they know the parts of what go into a solar power system that you would put on your house. So they're better prepared for solar than most people. And then we provide a lot of, our goal is to provide a lot of, we've provided some, but our goal is to provide a lot of hands-on experience so that kids have real strength in the area of installing solar power. They know the types of connectors to use. They know the code requirements for installing solar power. And the goal is, now in Guatemala, the goal is to create businesses. In Detroit, the goal is to create green jobs. And it's because in Guatemala, it's easier to start a business. And in Detroit, it's easier to create green jobs. So we've adapted the program to the local circumstances. So we're going to talk about volunteer projects now. We can't do this by ourselves. We're a relatively small nonprofit, and so we rely on having a lot of volunteers. We counted them up the other day. We're getting close to 1,000 people who volunteered with us. People have a good time. These are fun projects. A lot of our projects are traveling to Guatemala to install solar power on a building. This happens to be near Fatima's house, actually. She was one of the people on this project. Group of volunteers. And our volunteer projects focus on solar power, natural building. We're using the techniques for building that the Mayans used before Adobe was invented. We're using bamboo and clay in such a way that these buildings are, structurally speaking, more able to resist earthquakes. Guatemala is a good earthquake zone. There's a lot of earthquakes there. And bamboo is really good in tension, whereas clay, adobe, or concrete block is really bad in tension. So when something shakes, part of the building wants to stretch, and concrete doesn't stretch, but bamboo can stretch a little bit, and that makes it so that the buildings stand up during an earthquake. Karen Tice over there was in Guatemala. Karen's a friend from high school. Karen was in Guatemala during the 72 earthquake. What was the year?
It was 7.6 on the record.
76? Oh, 7.6?
3,000
Wow.
people died in my town.
How many died in your town?
3,000.
3,000. So the earthquakes can be pretty profound in Guatemala. And the buildings that stood up, there's a lot of pictures of this documenting this. The buildings that stood up were the ones that were made in this very old-fashioned technique of building that used a lot of bamboo with mud because of the tensile capacity of the materials. Okay, speaking of bamboo and mud, here's one of our helpers, a volunteer and a kid building with mud. Can you imagine just like how much fun that would be to be a kid and you get to build with mud?
Bamboo.
Yeah, you can see the bamboo up at the top there. Yeah, exactly. This wall is all horizontal bamboo and vertical larger pieces of bamboo, and then there's a technique to it, but there's a lot of fiber in that, and that fiber is really strong, and so that's what holds these. It's called bacareque, and that's what holds those buildings together. So you get to a typical volunteer project with us. You get to install solar power. It takes 3, maybe 4 days to install solar power on a building, and the rest of the time you get to play with mud and help repair a school, or build a new building, or build with bamboo. We build with sometimes we build with bamboo that's 6 or 8 inches in diameter and 30 feet long pieces. And you can span 30 feet with bamboo, which, there's very few pieces of wood that you can buy at the lumber company where you can span 30 feet with one piece of wood. Bamboo grows that long, that tall, and it has the strength to do it. It's stronger than the woods that we use here in the States. So here's a group of Girl Scouts. Well, it's Girl Scouts and a couple of other people that helped install solar power on a coffee cooperative. So this was both getting out to meet the people at the coffee cooperative and also an experience for the Girl Scouts to visit a different culture, to work hand in hand with a different culture. We installed solar power, and then we also used natural finishes to paint these buildings, and we also used natural materials to finish part of another building. It was a great project. This is great memories here. Sometimes we have this is a group of all women that just no guys that signed up for that trip, and these were an amazing group. They certainly didn't need me. Monica is there in front with the sunglasses, and to her, the person on the far left there, her name is Heather. She volunteered on a project. She came back a year later and was an intern for 3 or 4 months with us, and then she left to join the Peace Corps in Mexico, and she just asked us to come up to Mexico to start a program installing solar food dehydrators. So it's part of the she's part of the family now. So Monica's the director. Heather is our person in Mexico, carrying the mission forward. So we have people of a variety of ages. As I said, we've had as young as 14 and as old as 80 traveling with us so far. Right now, a family with a daughter who's 7 years old wants to travel with us in August to install solar power in a school. And I hope they get to do that. Yeah, I'm just going to show some pictures of just fun on the job site. She is building, using that same bamboo construction method, by the way, she's building a kitchen. She's building out a kitchen for the coffee cooperative, one of the Girl Scouts. So transportation to and from the job site can sometimes be a little primitive. If you were to volunteer with us, I would have you, if you were concerned about riding in the back of a pickup truck, check with us first, because it may be what's expected. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't expected.
Does it have brakes? It's using a rock.
Yeah, using a rock. This pickup truck did not have a jack. It did have a spare tire, and so when the tire blew out, we had to hold the truck up so that they could change the tire. You want to know something? You want to know what everybody did that night? Everybody talked about how cool it was to hold up a pickup truck so that somebody could change a tire. As a matter of fact, we had happy hour, and everybody was talking about the pickup truck. Here we are, we're changing the world. We're making life better for so many, and what everybody wants to talk about the pickup truck. So we do have social hour also on our trips. Lainey, you remember the Iguana?
I do.
You do? Yes, this is one of the places where we work out of is a hotel/hostel. So people who want to stay in hotel rooms can stay in a hotel room, and people who want to stay in a youth hostel type environment, on bunk beds with other travelers, can stay. It costs less to do that. So 2 of these guys are staying in the youth hostel, and Tom there is staying in a hotel room, really nice hotel room. It's a wonderful place. We have several places in Guatemala that are like the Iguana, where we have as a home base. And we've had up to about 20 people on the trip, and as a single group. We've had up to 4 groups simultaneously in Guatemala, Nicaragua, and India simultaneously. So the program can handle a lot of volunteers at the same time. These guys, volunteers, Greg and MJ. MJ, both of these people now volunteer with us in Detroit. They're both from Ann Arbor. And they're helping the kids with the hands-on solar installations in Detroit. And they both have experience doing solar work, a lot of solar work around the southeast Michigan. Here is our driver, Ruben Mata. Both of his kids, he has two boys, both of them were born during our trips. Ruben, I was surprised, I was riding with him along the highway, and he said, yeah, my wife just had a baby. And I said, well, why aren't you with her? He said, oh, no, her mother does that. And it's absolutely unexpected, not expected for a guy to be there. I told them that things are different in where I come from. But anyway, both kids were born on March 3rd during one of our spring break trips with U of M students. And another group of volunteers, another one of those walls that we built out of bamboo. And we started doing this, making posters out of our groups of volunteers, and now that we're up to such a large number, we can't do it. We don't have the time to do this anymore. We're getting busy. So, I've shown you ways that we've done some things to help make the planet and people's lives a little bit better. And it's not something that's unique to us. As a matter of fact, in Nicaragua, a woman working with a group called ProNica, who we had interfaced with briefly, her skill set was that she's a cosmetologist. Thank you, I love that.
In Florida.
Yeah, she's a cosmetologist in Florida, thank you. And what she did was she helped women learn how to cut hair and style hair, and they could go from house to house and help people, and provide a service. And she has been back to Nicaragua every year to teach another class of women how to start their own small businesses cutting hair. So there's now many hundreds of women who have jobs and have an income because this one woman decided that her skill set was valuable and she could teach other people to earn a living. The Milagros schools. This is a school that many of our volunteers have worked on over the years. We've had several projects here. It's not connected to the electrical grid, so the solar power that the school has, which isn't a ton of solar power right now, is all they have. Milagros Schools project was founded by Penny Rombacher. She's an airline flight attendant. She started over 200 schools now. She's financed over 200 schools in Guatemala because she realized, and all the schools have nutrition programs. So the stunting that I was telling you about, every kid gets a hot meal every day at these schools, so that it helps fight the malnutrition in Guatemala. And a flight attendant, okay? This is not like a wildly specific skill set that's necessary to make the world a better place. This is cool. Dylan O'Shea is a designer. I'm losing my notes. The notes are fashion designer. Yeah, Project Runway guy. He is working with women who weave fabric in Xela, the second largest city in Guatemala, to make fabric for clothing and also for architectural interiors. And he's now, actually, they just contacted us to buy the solar lighting systems for the women that don't have electricity in their homes. So he's creating jobs. Once again, this is a guy that you wouldn't think would have the skill set to make the world a better place, but he's out there doing it. And you can do this. Everybody here, you have a skill set. There's something you can offer. You can offer it here. You can change the world. And you can do that with us. You can volunteer in Guatemala. We need people on our board of directors. We'll have volunteer projects in Detroit, so if you want to work hand in hand with kids in Detroit, you will be learning about solar from our kids in Detroit. This is not where all the fancy people from Ann Arbor go and teach the kids in Detroit something. This is where the kids in Detroit get to show you what they know, and you get to learn something from them. It's a better model for education. It's a better model for creating self-esteem with the kids that we work with. You can just like us on Facebook. That would be very helpful. As we have a variety of events every year in Ann Arbor. We'll be talking about traveling in Guatemala. We'll be talking about just simply traveling in Guatemala in general, and then we'll also be talking about volunteering in Guatemala specifically at different talks in the next several months. So this is our director in Guatemala. I was the executive director up until January, and at the end of 12 years, that was my run. And I am now the Director Emeritus, the founder, and Chief Innovation Officer. But Monica has a degree in international development with a focus on small-scale development, rural development, and she's really much better suited to the job than I ever was. So I'm really pleased that we've been able to have a smooth transition from the founder to the next generation of people that will be running the nonprofit. So thank you, and I'm open for questions, and we can turn the lights on.